Hi, I'm Shelley Treacher from the Binge and Overeating Recovery podcast and Facebook Comfort Eating Recovery Support Group. I'm here to tell you about my No Sugar Month. This is day 8. I've been talking to you on weekdays. I talked to you every day last week. This week I may not do every day because I may not have as much to say, but I will let you know if I've got anything to tell you. Today I do have a lot to say because it's been a whole weekend, and the weekend was the first weekend that I've had since the beginning of lockdown, possibly a little bit before, that I didn't actually have a glass of wine on a Friday night, didn't have any sugar over the weekend. Those have become really fast habits for me, and I didn't do it. So that's the first thing I want to report to you, but I also want to, of course, tell you how I did it and what it was like for me to identify with what you might go through if you even think about giving up a comfort food, because I know that that's a really difficult task. So the Friday evening last week, I told you that I would be thinking about my goddaughter and wanting to make a connection with her rather than being slightly inebriated, which I always feel slightly ashamed about afterwards and doesn't feel right. This time I didn't have the wine, and I was so glad that I didn't, because later in the night, I put my goddaughter to bed and she told me all about what's going on for her. And she cried for the first time with me. And apparently that is extremely unusual for her to cry with anybody else except her mother. So I felt so honoured. And I don't know if I would have been as present if I had had that glass of wine. Who knows? She might even have sensed that and not cried. And fingers crossed, I believe that her crying helped her. So that's kind of like one of the most important things in my life at all, is to help this beautiful, darling girl that I completely adore. So the fact that I managed to do that is something I'm really pleased with. So that's the first tip that I have for you. Is all about connecting with your bigger goal, your bigger value, and things that are more important to you than squashing the feelings that you might have with the comfort food or comfort substance. Having said that, I know how difficult that can be. It's not as easy as that to just say that you're going to resist because you've got a higher goal. So the next thing that happened to me on Saturday morning, I usually have tons of chocolate. Not tons, I say tons, but for me it's tons now. I'd probably get through a bar of chocolate in the morning, like a proper bar, not just a little 79 pence bar. It's a proper chocolate bar. And I didn't do that. I did miss it, and I was miserable. And the thoughts of wanting that chocolate bar came to me very often on Saturday because it's such a different day. I am just pottering around doing whatever I want to, so I have time to think. So I was thinking quite often, I really would like that chocolate right now, and this is the time I would have it, and I would usually just satisfy that without even thinking about it. So obviously, with all the tools and skills that I've told you about last week, I was thinking about it this time and thinking, why do I want this? What's behind this? How do I feel? What's making me feel like I need comfort? And it was quite easy for me to identify that the biggest thing that I'm feeling right now, my mother died about 11 years ago, and every single year at this time, she died at the weekend, not this weekend, but the next weekend. It gets me every time. And I started looking through my emails from my mother and connecting with her. And I don't need to tell you how difficult relationships can be with your mother. It's a lifelong challenge. My mother and I were extremely close, and we had our difficulties, and it all showed up in these emails, and it all showed up in my feelings on Saturday. And I did allow myself to have a bit of a cry, having identified that that's what's behind my comfort eating for that particular day. And that, I honestly felt so much better. Would definitely recommend a cry. But that felt great, but not great. Obviously, I went through some pain, but it was good to have that and to let it pass and to honour how I feel about my mother and what happened with my mother, and to work through any feelings of guilt, any feelings of regret, and any feelings of love that I want to reconnect with. It was wonderful to work through it all. I've forgotten my point. I was going to say something really important about how I know it's not easy to connect with how you feel sometimes. I've been feeling this one for 11 years. I've been trying to get in touch with how I feel for a lot longer. So I know it takes time sometimes. I'm not saying you're going to find it easy just by suddenly thinking, right, I don't want chocolate. Okay, what's the feeling? Sometimes it takes a bit longer than that to dig a bit deeper and find out what's underneath the urge for chocolate, especially if you're not used to being in touch with how you feel. But ultimately, the healing seems to come through allowing the feeling to pass through, which may take time. So I'm not saying that you can expect to go through this that quickly and painlessly, but sometimes it does happen quickly and painlessly. And being realistic about the fact that the chocolate wasn't really going to help me with anything that I was feeling, I felt proud of myself for saying no in the first place, for questioning the validity of the chocolate and what it actually would do for me in the second place. Third place, allowing myself to feel and to honour my mother and my relationship with my mother. I forgot what number we're on, but fourthly, I think, honouring how I feel and respecting myself. And then finally, after Saturday, on Sunday, I really got a payoff because I started to taste sugar in everything and it felt too sweet. And I can only assume that the physical addiction part of the sugar is now over for me. I only think it lasts a few days. I think it only lasts 4 days for me. I think it might be personal for each person. But some say 2 days, some say a week, some say for the rest of your life. I don't think that's the physical part of the addiction. I think that's the emotional part and the psychological habits and associations with the sugar. But so I'm over the physical part, which is great. And so now all foods taste too sweet to me. So I'm not overeating them by choice, which is my point. This is kind of how where I want you to get to. And I went to bed really early on Saturday night. I was just tired. Another acknowledgement of tiredness. That's the thing that I wanted to say. Making a deal out of this. Going on a diet is the same, or going on some kind of cutting something out of your diet that you usually use for comfort is a big deal. This is an addiction. And if you were going to a rehab centre, this would be made a massive deal of. You'd be given all kinds of different self-help treatments and therapy and care from different avenues and different aspects. And why should it be any less when you give up a comfort food? So I've been treating myself like something's happening and I need care. So I've spent lots of time on looking after myself, went to bed early. I've been eating really nice foods that sustain me and feel good and enjoyable. And I've been writing in my journal about how I feel. I've been allowing myself to do whatever I want the rest of the time that I'm not working or doing something that I need to do. I've been enjoying work actually more probably because of this. And just ultimately treating yourself like you need care, I think, is my next piece of advice to you. So Sunday, physical addiction gone, sweet things tasted sweet. And I started to want to be more healthy and more mindful about everything I was eating. So I stopped eating a lot of the things that I'd been relying on. Not entirely. I'm still not a saint. I'm still not perfect. We may still come to Coffee Friday on next Friday. I'll see. But I suspect I'll be less into it because I'm being so conscious of enjoying what's going on in my life, physically, emotionally, spiritually. I think that may be all I need to say. Let me just check my cheat sheet. Yeah, that's it. That's it for today. Thank you for listening. I have made a compilation of these for the next podcast. There's a podcast coming out this week on habits. That's a really good precursor to all of this. And then there's another podcast coming out the following week, which will be a compilation of these days. So if you want to hear it all at once, that might be the better way to do it. Although it will be split over 2 or 3 sessions, depending on how much I talk in the next few weeks. That's it. If you have any questions, you have any comments, if you're watching, give me a thumbs up. If anything here has been useful to you, let me know. Give me a thumbs up. Put hashtag replay into the comments if you're watching after I've gone live. And by all means, ask me anything that you need to. I'm very happy to answer questions. Thank you so much for paying attention. I'll see you tomorrow or the next day. We'll see. Bye.